Commander Honglan was an absolute wall for me. She has lightning fast attack combos, mixes weapon attacks with martial arts so you can't easily block or clash, and when her health gets below 50%, like when you even attack, she's just constantly spamming out strikes. So in short, I died a lot, which prompted me to spend some time experimenting to try to find the strongest possible build that was as easy to play as possible so that I could beat the boss. And the end result is a build that I'm pretty happy with. I can use evasive maneuvers to avoid most of her damage while firing spells that do huge chunks to the boss. I'll start by going over the basics of how to put the build together, then talk about some of Honglan's more dangerous moves and how I'm playing around them, before wrapping everything up with an unedited kill. So first up, weapons. I'm using the Dark Frost Edge, which I've enhanced to +4. This is for the evasive maneuver weapon skill, which allows me to automatically dodge enemy attacks. It does have a little bit less spell power than something like the Astral Blade, but I think the safety more than makes up for it. For benedictions, I've gone with the Wei Tri-Disciplinary Force. You have 5 disciplines, 1 for each weapon, unlocked by default, so this bonus is active. It's a very nice generic damage bonus. And beyond that, there is the Sheng Lasting Alacrity, which makes the alacrity window from spellcasting much more forgiving. And then the last slot, doesn't matter, use anything you have. For armor, I mostly focused on slash and stab defense with a little bit of blunt defense. If you look at my stats here, it's like 52-ish% slash mitigation, a nice 57 stab and 27 blunt. This means I'm a little bit more vulnerable to Honglan's martial arts, but I found that it was mostly her bladed weapon attacks that were hitting me. If you want to be a little bit more resilient against the martial arts, look for things with a higher blunt defense, for example, the Pirate Hairpin. But as you'll note here, you lose a huge amount of slash and stab mitigation, so I found that I was just able to dodge the martial arts, and that way I had the defenses against bladed weapons. For pendants, good pendant, this is a nice damage reduction at low health. Honestly, not super important. It would be very easy to swap this out for something like Twin Infant Pendant if you find you're running out of stamina as you're dodging. I'm also using the Lu Pendant, which I believe is from a side quest. So if you don't have this, just use the increased stamina regen instead. But I like the damage reductions here, and I didn't find I was ever running out of stamina, as I didn't need to spend it on attacking. I was simply focusing on dodging. And last up, the Draco Lich Pendant, which is generally useful throughout the game, not actually helpful against Honglan. But again, I don't have anything that's better here. I guess maybe the Eagle Pendant for weapon stab attack power for the off chance that I do an auto attack. Ultimately, it doesn't matter that much, as defensive bonuses are going to matter a lot more since most of your damage is coming from spells. And I think it's time to talk about the star of the show, Echo of Lu Bingzhang. This is a spell where you throw a spear and deal feathering damage, but it can trigger Alacrity, basically an automatic defense that generates Skyborn Might if you're attacked while casting. So to demonstrate that quickly, just going to do this. As you can see, the character jumps back and hurls the spear. Now, the jump itself is usually enough to take you out of an enemy's attack range, but even if you don't technically avoid the attack physically, again, the Alacrity will provide the automatic defense. In addition, I am using the Bone Needle Magic. As a note, this one is important because when used via tempering, it boosts spell damage specifically, not magic or feathering damage on the weapon, which I know is a little confusing because it was a feathering spell being used with Bone Needle Magic. So next up, the Impetus Repository Tree. My character is currently level 29, but you really only need level 27 for the core talents to come together. So first up, Biding Time. This gives passive Skyborn Might generation, which means it's much easier to sustain your spellcasting. Next, you want to path down and through the feathering nodes. This is also quite nice because it paths right past Swiftblade. This is where a bulk of your damage is going to come from. So, over here to the right to Ascending Wrath, which you have to take, then continue down and right. Again, Swiftblade, it does not matter if this is 1 point or 3 points, and this is 1 or 3, just as many points as you can put in between the two of them. Then over here, +5 and +5. Again, this is where a majority of the build's damage comes from. On the left side, you start with Elusive. This is what allows you to generate Skyborn Might by dodging at the right time. Next, path left through Skyborn Call. This is increased maximum Skyborn Might. Take all of the mana potency and all of the mana capacity nodes that you can. Exactly how many you're going to be able to take depends on how much you've explored. Next up, you want Alacrity. So while at above 50% madness, you gain 1 stack of Skyborn Might when using Alacrity. That is the auto dodge on some spells, such as the Echo of Lu Bingzhang. After that, take Unbroken Focus. While above 90% madness, the buff from Biding Time, which starts at 1 stack and goes all the way up to 8 stacks, will not decay below 3. This is much more consistent Skyborn Might generation, so I highly recommend it. Then pathing left through Energetic, recovering a small amount of stamina upon gaining Skyborn Might. It's nice, but not super important. However, you do need the node, as you want to go down here to Fury of the Skyborn. This reduces the cost of Echo-type spells by 1. So let's come back over here to the spell menu. Normally, Echo of Lu Bingzhang costs 3 Skyborn Might. It is due to this node that is down to 2, which makes it much more efficient to use. So again, that's mandatory. And if you're wondering, wait, well, how do you stay above 50% madness? Oh, don't worry, I'm getting to that. And last up, take the Bone Needle Magic. That way you have a magic buff via Temperate. Next up, coming over here, Skyborn Call 2. The more Skyborn Might that you have, the more forgiving the playstyle is. And if you are level 27, I recommend going into Temper for Temperance charges +1. If you are level 29, I recommend going all the way over to Skyborn Call 3. It's kind of annoying to cast the Temperance mid-combat anyway, and this is just much, much more consistent. The more maximum Skyborn Might, the more consistent it is. And then last up, if you have any spare points, just put them into the Feathering nodes here. This is quite a big damage bump, but you absolutely don't need it. Don't go like grind a ton of red mercury. You'll have more than enough damage for the job. Now, before I get into some tactics on actually fighting the boss, I want to get into a couple of things that you can/should do going into the fight. The first of which is, if your madness is not already above 90%, which you can check by coming over to your character menu. As you can see, I'm at 120 out of 120. But if I wasn't, I would just use the Maddening Incense item. This is a buff that will fill your madness by a large chunk, and it refreshes whenever you dream, so it's pretty easy to use. The next thing to do in terms of prep, come over here. Now, as you head down the ladder towards Honglan, you'll see this dude. Kill him, and specifically do not cast spells on him, just hit him with your light attacks. This is to build up stacks of Biding Time, so that you don't have to waste time meleeing Honglan. Now, if you're really struggling, you can wait right before a fight until your Skyborn Might fills. It will decay at roughly the same rate as it's generated. That said, I didn't find it to be worth it. So instead, what I'll do is just cast the Temperance buff and then immediately jump down and start the fight. Alright, the basic playstyle is pretty simple. Keep a medium distance and dodge or use evasive maneuvers to avoid Honglan's attacks as you build up Skyborn Might. Use it to fire spears at her face to deal large chunks of damage. You can weave in some light attacks if you feel comfortable. This will help maintain stacks of Biding Time, but you're able to kill the boss either way, so don't do it if it means you're going to take some damage. And so next, I want to talk about a few of Commander Honglan's moves. This section isn't going to be comprehensive. It's only going to highlight a few things that were the most frequent or the most dangerous moves from my experience. And throughout this section, I'm going to be using the words dodge and evade interchangeably. You can either use the dodge button or spend 1 Skyborn Might on evasive maneuvers to avoid her attacks. The advantage of dodge, you don't spend any Skyborn Might if the attack would miss you anyway. And the advantage of evasive maneuvers is it lasts a lot longer and provides a lot more safety. So in short, if you are feeling comfortable, dodge, otherwise use evasive maneuvers. Personally, I found it was usually easier to dodge her attacks when she was far away, and then use evasive maneuvers when she was up close because I wasn't quite comfortable dodging at that distance. So first up, a move you're going to be seeing a lot is her charge. And you actually want to stand at a medium distance throughout the fight, specifically to bait her into using this as much as possible. That's because it's pretty easy to deal with. She'll assume a stance and then charge forwards. It might take a couple tries, but once I got the timing down, I found it really easy to dodge towards her, so that her momentum carries her past me, and not only avoid damage from this charge, but quite often generate Skyborn Might by triggering the Shimmer effect. Now, most of the time, she will go straight into a martial arts combo after the charge. If so, that is the perfect time to throw a spear and pop her in the face. On the other hand, if she begins using a sword slash, I found those covered a lot more distance, and the end of her combo could catch me at the end of my iframes from Alacrity, so I'd hold off on casting until she had attacked at least once, and then try to iframe with Alacrity the final attack in her sequence. Now, the next thing that hit me way more than I'd like to admit was the 50% transition that Honglan does. At this point, she begins empowering her blades with water and firing her own spells at range. The transition is a backflip followed by 2 ranged water blades. The best way to deal with this, at least from my experience, is to dodge left. Because with the angle of the second blade, if you time it perfectly, you won't have to move at all after dodging the first. With that said, if you don't time it perfectly, the second blade will smack you in the face like you just saw, so it doesn't hurt to dodge or use evasive maneuvers for the second one as well. Now in this phase, Honglan is much more aggressive, so you really need to focus on using evasive maneuvers to avoid her attacks, in addition to dodging, especially when she's at close range. In fact, I found there are times where I was using evasive maneuvers multiple times in a row without really getting a chance to fire off a spell. That's fine as long as you don't cap on Skyborn Might. If you cap on Skyborn Might, it's kind of bad, so try to avoid doing that. Now, below 50%, Honglan continues to use those water blades, and dodging these is a little bit tricky because there's actually 3 variants. There's a vertical slash, a diagonal slash, and a horizontal slash. I found the dodge timing for both the vertical and diagonal slashes to be pretty similar. When I tried to use the same timing to dodge the horizontal slash, it messed me up, because I feel like it's just a little teeny bit longer. Evasive maneuvers is your friend here, because you can use it at a time where you'd avoid the vertical or diagonal, and it will also avoid the horizontal. But if you're dodging, watch her blades. She uses both weapons for the slower horizontal slash, but only one weapon for the faster vertical and diagonal ones. And so those are a few moves that stood out to me. Now, with that said, here is the fight in full. So yeah, that's my build, and the strategy that I used to beat Commander Honglan. It was really fun to go from dying to her repeatedly to almost being able to no-hit her after just a few attempts. And I'm pretty sure with more practice, I could have done it. Does that mean I got good? Honestly, not really. I'm pretty sure the build just carried me. And so, hopefully it carries you as well. That said, let me know if you have any other questions about Wuchang Fallen Feathers down in the comments below, such as other bosses you're struggling with or things you'd like to know about the game's combat system. Then get subscribed and ring the notification bell. That way, if I make a video answering your question, you'll see it in the near future. I suspect the combination of spellcasting and evasion is going to take me pretty far. I'm going to breeze through a lot more bosses in the near future, but I have heard it falls off as of New Game Plus, so I'm really curious once I get there if I can find a spell build that's viable all the way through. And so that's it. Thank you very much for watching to the end. I'm glad you've enjoyed. Be sure to leave a like. And if you want to see all of this stuff in written form that might be a little bit easier to follow at your own pace, then do check out a full written guide that I have over on MaxwellGG. That'll be linked down in the description below. But that's going to be it for me today. Good luck on your attempts, and I'll see you in the next one.